Okay, so we're finally back to this. I think I talked about this in another tier list maker video I made since part 2 released, but it wasn't Mortal Kombat related, so most of you probably didn't even see that. So the audio got corrupted, and I had two options. It was either take the video file and just dub over it, and just try to say roughly the same things, which was weeks, if not months later, so nobody's going to remember most of that stuff, and try and rationalize this stuff. Why did I choose this? I probably chose it because of this. Who knows? And it wouldn't really have worked the same way, so the other option, of course, was to just completely redo it, and I've been busy with other projects, like the Fire Emblem video that bombed and you guys won't watch, so I've not really had time to get back to this until now. And so we're picking up from where part 2 ended, which was after I had completed discussion of MK vs DCU stages. I still had these to sort out, and then these were the ones I had junked. Now, in relation to this, there was this comment on part 1, not even part 2, part 1. Someone saying this is a shit tier list. And of course, you know, it's that thing people do on YouTube where they'll just say that is the case and not elaborate. They won't explain what makes it shit. Therefore, making this comment fucking worthless, okay? There is no value in it. And I'm just here thinking, is this person so dumb that they are looking at this tier list and saying, oh, how could you get rid of classic stages like Goro's Lair, the Pit, and the Courtyard, and not considering the possibility that maybe I'm getting rid of them because I only want to keep one version of each stage at most where possible, and I'm getting rid of the simpler older versions to make room for the better versions that came later. You fool! You absolute fool! I hope something bad happens to you that makes you reconsider your life. Idiot! As for the rest of you, welcome back. Let's try and discuss some MK stages. So, going into the Netherrealm trilogy, we have... Let's start with the Courtyard. So there are two versions of the Courtyard in MK9. We have the daytime version and the nighttime version, which is the cool thing. I wish Netherrealm would do this more. I've mentioned this at least in the video on Evolution of Netherrealm story modes, about how weird it is when stages only have one time a day. So like, a character can go from Khan's Arena to the shoreline, wherever that is. Shoreline, and then to the forest. Like, Katana does this, and it's like, why does the sky keep changing wherever she goes? Or why is Superman attacking Metropolis during the day while simultaneously his men attack Gotham at night when they are just like one bay area apart? This is silly. But anyway, looking at these two, I like both. I know it's not necessarily like a huge difference. Like, some of these stages were changed quite a bit from the original version. This is one of the most faithful compared to the original. I really like the atmosphere of the nighttime version. It's really cool. The daytime one, it's fine, but the nighttime one just feels so ominous, which is very fitting for, you know, the battle to determine the fate of the world. I'll get rid of the nighttime, get rid of the daytime version rather, because if I was to keep two versions of the Courtyard, I couldn't keep both for MK9. Like, that would be a bit much. I'm going to take the same stage, but like 2 different times a day, rather than I'm going to take 2 different versions of the stage that are actually substantially different. Next we have the Deadpool, which is fine. It's one of those reimaginings that is, you know, pretty faithful. There's some cool little additions, but there are better versions, and I don't think I've kept one of them in yet. Did I? I kept the original. Huh. This time, unlike the original time I did this, where I did go through each game, I think I'm going to try and get through the stages instead, just to make the thought process a bit clearer. So I think the MK11 version is cooler. Now, obviously, this version of it I feel doesn't necessarily work as well for the intent that the MK9 version has in the story, where it's a holding place for prisoners, which was always a weird choice, but I guess they figured they couldn't find any other way to include the Deadpool in there. And I guess swapping it in the Armory and having Johnny and Jax have their stupid fights over an acid bath would have been even dumber, so, you know. So, yeah, I like this one quite a lot. I'm not sure what it is exactly about it. I think it's like the extra detail on the floor and such. I think it's really cool. I may get rid of the original version of the Deadpool, just because, you know, a lot of these compared to the newer versions are almost like a proof of concept. Like, here's the basic idea of what the Deadpool is, and the others are spun off from it in new, more interesting ways. Next, I will go to... What was the other one now? There's another one I was looking at. Oh, it was the Courtyard. That's one, the other one I did. Okay. So, Khan's Arena. No, the Courtyard. It was the Courtyard. What am I doing? It was this one. This one's good. This is another version of the Courtyard I would keep because it works really well. It's not just literally, here's the stage with its design retconned. This is the continuation of that. It's set years later. So, you know, like when, in Deadly Alliance, when Raiden's group goes to Shang Tsung's island to meet up, you can easily imagine this is what it would look like by that time. Abandoned and not necessarily with the monks dead, but at least it's moving things forward. It's one of the things I think fighting games should do more is when they move the story forward, especially by a decade plus, they should bring back older stages and use that to help reflect how things have changed over time. You know, like bring back an old location from like Tekken 1 or 2 for Tekken 8. Like, fighting games don't do that very often. I guess because they want to have new stages, or if they're going to bring back one for nostalgia's sake, they're usually trying to be faithful and nostalgic rather than let's do something different. So, Goro's Lair, we have the MK9 and MK11 version. Which version of it do I have so far? This is a refresher for me and most people who've watched this, because I'm sure people aren't rewatching this very often and haven't seen part 2 since it came out. I kept the Armageddon version because I saw that before, and that seems to be it. And now I've got these two. It's hard to say because these two, like with the Courtyard, it is effectively the same one. I mean, obviously there are changes here and there. Like the layout isn't exactly the same, but it's the same idea. This is, how do I put this? 11 is like an updated, tweaked version of the MK9 version rather than just another generalized Goro's Lair. There are differences, but you can still see this. It's meant to be the same area, whereas, say, the Armageddon one could just be a different part of the lair. I'm tempted to include one of these in here, have it with the Armageddon one, and just say it's different parts of Goro's Lair, but I do want to have more variety. So I'm going to limit myself here and just have the one version. I guess I'm just going to axe these ones, because while it's cool Goro having his little throne down there, it's also kind of silly, like what is he looking over? You know, Shang Tsung's throne is like, he got his nice lavish throne room where he can have fighters fight each other for his amusement. He can watch them fighting from his throne in the Courtyard. Khan's arena, he's got his throne there where he can watch people fight. Goro, it's like Goro doesn't watch people fight, people just get sent down there to fight him. So what, does he just sit there all day? You know, it reminds me of, I think it was Ultima 7, where there's a big throne set up for the Guardian. A tiny bit of space in front of him, barely any room for his legs, and it's just like a tiny window in front of him. It's like, what is the point of this thing? So then we have the Pit, and it's kind of surprising they didn't bring the Pit back for MK11, but I guess because they did it in MKX already, they didn't bother. Where is the MKX one? So the MKX one is basically just the nighttime version from MK9, just slightly graphically updated. Therefore, the MK9 one can... Actually... Okay, so, which version of the Pit have we got so far? Because I remember we got rid of the original because it was basically just modern versions just take from MK2. The MK2 one has all the recognisable stuff from the Pit, aside from the spikes. And I kept the Deception one because it's different. It's a little platform over here. Okay. It might be easy to rearrange them by stage, but I'm not doing that. So now... Oh god. See, when you have so many stages, it's hard to scroll through them and keep track of everything, but... I should try to keep just one version of the Pit 1, right? Do I have the Pit bottom here? Yes, I do. Honestly, I prefer the original cleaner version compared to this, like, dirty version. I get what they were going for, but I just prefer the old one. Then we have these ones. Now, the MKX one is technically a better version of that one, right? Wrong. Because in MKX, in the background, all you get is the same two characters over and over again. MK9 has a wide variety of characters in the background. And as great as this looks with a big moon, I kind of have that for the MK2 version, right? The Pit 2. So, I'm gonna... Where is it now? Damn it, I keep looking at Erase Forever, not down below. Right, okay. So I'm going to keep the daytime version, which has those extra characters fighting in the background, as well as all the flying fire rocks, which is another cool little thing that I imagine was implemented just because they were like, well, if we don't have the big moon, then visually the daytime version is way less interesting. And they'd be right. So then we have this version of the Graveyard, which I think is actually really cool. Probably the best version yet. Although technically it's supposed to be the same as the MK3 version, but the MK3 version, it wasn't a Solnado originally, because Solnados didn't exist until Deadly Alliance, but it makes sense as a thing to include to explain the souls of the people being stolen and such from the MK3 story. So this is meant to be after the Solnado stuff has happened. Here it's like in progress. But if I were to pick just one, because I need to have a good variety of stages, I can't just pick the same locations over and over again. Oh, I have the Deception version of the Deadpool as well. I have 3 versions of the Deadpool. That can't last. Okay, so I'll get rid of the original, because this one, the Deception version has the aesthetic as well. It has the same aesthetic, but it's got a different layout. Where is it? There's so many stages. Here it is. Same with the Living Forest. Like, it's a different layout, so it adds something a little different And in the same vein, I'm going to... Yeah, I'll keep the MK9 one. I wasn't quite sure if I preferred the vibe of it or the original. I think I prefer the originals just a bit, but the one from MK9 is still very solid in terms of its atmosphere with all the mist and such, rather than just pure darkness. Plus, having the trees be more twisted is cool. Honestly, I like the training mode dojo. I wish you could use normal stages for training mode. I'm pretty sure you can't in MK9, but it's a pretty good location. I quite like it. It's a little different. It's just a simple dojo. I wish the series would have more stuff like that, but it's not that often we get a stage that is explicitly this is where characters train. There's like that, the Wuxi Academy, and stuff from Conquest mode, and that's kind of it. Okay, next I'm going to look at the Soul Chamber. So the Soul Chamber we have already is the MK3 version. I could have sworn I got rid of some of these already, like straight away said, yeah, I'm getting rid of these for later. I guess not. So next with the Soul Chamber, there's the MK9 version, which is fine. I feel like it's a bit overdone. And then we have... Oh yeah, I remember having a discussion about how close you are to the 9's a bit too far away, there's a bit too close. I like this one just for being... Oh, did I drop it? Ah, here it is. I like the MK11 version for basically amalgamating the Soul Chamber with another location. And so you can kind of justify it as two different Soul Chambers that have the same basic idea, but they're different spots. Like one of them is just like a basic Soul Chamber, and this could be like, this is where Shang Tsung or Shao Kahn does stuff with books. Or maybe Ermac set up all these books, because there are these little bookshelves and stuff, like who knows. But it helps make it feel more like a lab, like the place where someone would go to spend time while crafting Ermac, rather than whatever the fuck. And on a related note, flesh pits can go. Again, I understand what they were going for, but I think it doesn't really fit with what the vibe of the term flesh pits convey. I think at the very least they could have had a death trap in the background where you knock the opponents into it a little well and they fall down to a pit of gore, and then incomplete meat people drag them below the surface of the blood at the bottom and kill them. They get dragged under, then like an arm floats to the surface, you know, something like that. I like the version of the desert from MK9 quite a lot. Did I keep... No, it goes in there. Not TBA. Did I keep the original? Yes, I did. I think the sandstorm is a bit much. It can obscure things a bit too much, which is kind of annoying. But honestly, these two could both work as separate stages, separate deserts. I think I like the MK9 version a bit more, so if we're going to get rid of one, it'd be the original. The MK9 version has more story to it with the Sindel statue and such, whereas the original, it's fun seeing Cyrex in the background, but like, what is this platform? What is it here for? The game never explains it. I guess it somehow relates to Jade, but we don't know. So then we have the Rooftop, which got three versions. You have the early stages of the invasion, you have later on, and then you have the Aftermath. Aftermath 1 is kind of dull. I feel like that one was made purely for the sake of the story mode. Like, that's where the final cutscene is taking place when Khan dies. And I guess they figured, well, we've already made it. We might as well make an alternate version of the stage they can play in, which I appreciate. I wish more stuff like that would be done, because sometimes you get locations that just exist for the cutscenes and you can't fight there, even when a fight takes place there, like Melina's camp in MKX. Daytime version's kind of dull. I feel like the invasion is at its most visually interesting when it's dark, and while I like the original version of the Rooftop where it's all nighttime, that one has a great vibe just because of the Shao Kahn fortress, but without that, if it was just nighttime, it wouldn't be as interesting. Here you got all the devastation going on. I like that. I think I'm getting to a point now where I'm like, I like having these two versions. I can justify them being different things, but at the same time, it's like a lot of unique stages are being axed, and that's probably not fair, so I'm gonna have to go through some of those later on and make room. For now though, I feel like the MK9 version of the bell tower is just too complex in terms of its design. All this crap going across. I much prefer the original versions where it was just a bell tower. There's a big bell right there in the middle, and did I not keep one? Yeah, I kept the Armageddon version. See, it's it's much more simple. I mean, I wouldn't have the MK logo there. I feel like the games get a bit too logo happy, just slapping it on everything. Like, I forget where it was established, but I'm sure it's established that the Mortal Kombat logo, being a dragon, in universe is the symbol of the Elder Gods. So then why does Shao Kahn have it on his hammer? Why does the guy who is actively going against what the Elder Gods want have the symbol on his hammer? You know? That would be like if when Takeda left the Lin Kuei to form the Shirai Ryu, if he kept the Lin Kuei logo on his belt, he'd be like, why though? Why are you doing this? And I guess I can knock off a couple of the MKX ones. Keep the Snowy Forest, get rid of the... I think generally, like yeah, it's a little easy, admittedly, to get rid of the red versions of these stages and just keep the original versions, because they are very situational versions. Do we even have the Corrupted Jinsei? I don't think I have the Corrupted Jinsei in here. Alright, so I'll just put the normal Jinsei in TBA as a bit of a reminder to account for that. I like this one. This is one of those cases where they basically took an existing stage and just made a new stage out of it. Like, this is not the Wasteland. They call it the Wasteland because it's just like somewhere in the wastes of Outworld with the purple sky, but it's not. It's not the Wasteland. It's a completely different location. I would have appreciated both being in the game, and that's why I will have both here. It's just a different part of Outworld. This could be like a staging ground for the Tarkatans, perhaps, and this can just be where a battle recently took place against like the Edenian resistance or something. We never do get context, at least in the story, for what this battlefield was. I wonder if perhaps in the stage description that might exist somewhere in the game, if that might explain it. And it's one of the things actually where you could make tweaked versions of the stage for different points in the narrative. Like, you could have different battles based on different factions. So it could be like, you're going through the Deadly Alliance story, so the characters are going through, here's some of the undead soldiers who have been killed. Remember, the undefeatable army are undefeatable because they keep getting resurrected, not because they're indestructible. So you have a bunch of them dead with some of, I don't know, Outworld resistance forces. Then you could put like an MK2 version where it could be like a battle between resistance forces and the Tarkatans. And then MKX, it's between Kothal's guys and Melina's guys, and you have different corpses depending on what part of the story it is. That could be really cool. This is another one of those that was an amalgamation of multiple stages where they took the garden and the warrior shrine and combined them. The nighttime version I just like the vibe of more. I think it's just a cool stage to have. I'm quite fond of the look of it. I don't think we actually go there in the story though. Even though we go there twice, both scenes take place in the other version. I wonder if there's ever consideration to use this version, then for some reason they just opted not to. Because you know what Netherrealm is like, sometimes they just make these weird decisions just for seemingly no reason. They're just like, we're just not going to use this here, or we'll use it in some other way. I can get rid of this one, the MKX training stage. It's a danger room type thing. I wish they'd have used it in the story to give a bit more context. Like, I mean, I think when I did the episode on the Combat Kids on Wasted Potential, I suggested Cassie get her own chapter as chapter 2 between Johnny and Kothal's, and then you could have this as a location for some of Cassie's training. But, you know, there's other stages that deserve to get in over that, such as Tournament and... get in there. Tournament and the Retrocade. The Retrocade, I feel you could actually take that basic idea and rework it to make it a film set. I mean, I've used it in some videos to imply the idea, but you basically just have it at the background is basically like a map painting in an older film or like a green screen, but it's screens that show different classic locations. Not necessarily in the retro form. You could probably have like as an alternate version of it. Like, you have two versions of the stage, one that's meant to be, here's Johnny Cage's film set, so there are cameras about and mic guys and stuff like that, and perhaps above the fighters you could see a boom mic hanging overhead the whole time in the centre of the screen as some poor schmuck is trying to keep it where you can hear all the bone crunching. And then you have the retro version, which has the original versions like the Retrocade does, and as well as some arcade machines and stuff, and maybe like a wax figure or a statue or like a merch stand of classic Johnny Cage, like MK1 style. You know, you could have some fun with it. Take these ideas and reimagine how they could work as part of the narrative. Because obviously this stage and this stage are non-canon, but they are cool. Also, Shaolin Monk's arcade machine when, cowards? Why'd you make that up? Why did you lie? Why is that not real, guys? Come on. So again, taking a few stages and combining them, I like the streets a lot in MK9. Did I keep... got the waterfront here. I think I took the bridge off because I was planning to include this version because it's another street level. I might need to get rid of one of these, but I like the way it amalgamates like the waterfront, the bridge, the street, and also does something. It's not just literally the same thing. It does something different with it, whole different vibe, and you have the battle stuff going on in the background. It's really cool. One of the better stages in the game, I think. Hell. Did I keep any version of Hell before now? The original? I think I would just prefer the original more, just because these bone pillars are more unique than just dudes on fire in the background suffering for eternity. And I'm not going to have more than one version of it, just because if we're going to have a bunch of Netherrealm stages, like the Netherrealm, not Netherrealm era, we need a wider range of options. Because, like, yeah, you know, I like Quan Chi's Fortress, and I like the Crossroads. They are cool stages, ironically. But I don't want the Netherrealm to just be made up of fire. And that's something that the fighting games at large, throughout the whole series, not just the Netherrealm era, has somewhat struggled with. Like we saw in MK Mythologies, that there's all kinds of environments, like a big ocean with like a pyramid and stuff, and yet in the fighting games we didn't get a stage anything like that until like we got to the Sea of Blood stuff in MK11. Where's that other one? There we go. This one's kind of funny actually. This is the proper icon they have when you're selecting the stages, and it's highlighting the area in the background, not the place where you're fighting. This would be like if the Pit 2 was represented by the back bridge, not the one at the front you're fighting on. Because I guess if they just showed the shoreline, it wouldn't be distinctive enough for people to instantly recognize, oh, that's where that is. Anyway, Sea of Blood. I think I kept the Nethership in TBA because I was planning to discuss the Nethership, the Sea of Blood rather later. Because you don't need 2 ship stages. No, I have to keep that, and I guess I'll get rid of the Nethership. Because the Nethership is just a basic boat. But then again, yeah, I'll just go with this. Because you could just, again, you could always make a reskinned version of the stage, just like a different boat and on normal water. So at that point, it's not really choosing which stage is aesthetic one, it's which one in terms of its structure. And the MK11 one obviously has more going for it because it has the interactables. So I'll just go with that. I'll keep all these Netherrealm stages because the Netherrealm doesn't actually have that many stages overall. But I'll keep these because these are unique enough. And they have like a distinctive thing. Did I keep either the Armageddon version or the DCU one? No. And both of those have the whole falling from platforms thing, which is a bit more unique than the Crossroads. Yeah, I'll bring back this Cliffs one, and I will axe Crossroads. Yeah. You don't want too many. I mean, we can't have too many Netherrealm stages to where there's no room for new, more distinctive places of suffering. I mean, come on. Guys, like, Dante's Inferno has the lowest circle of hell be a frozen wasteland. Why do we not have the frozen wastes of one of the circles? I mean, there being circles of the Netherrealm, or planes of the Netherrealm, was established at least as far back as Deadly Alliance. Like, it's brought up in, I think, Dramin's bio, maybe Quan Chi's. So we should get more stuff like that. The subway. Have I kept a version of the subway yet? The original where you fight on the tracks and this one. This is another one of those where it really doesn't matter which version you choose because they're all basically the same. Even the aesthetic. Like this one's a bit darker and grungier, I suppose, because that's just kind of MK9's general style and approach to older stages. But it's not really any different compared to the others. You also have to consider, I guess, what would the gameplay here be like? Like, would it be like in Dead or Alive where you could start off on the train platform, knock them down onto the train tracks, and that's a separate layer of the stage, but it's the same stage overall? Because I can't really justify having 2 subway stages in here, or can I? We'll see, I guess. Armory. Armory's always been kind of bland. It still baffles me that there's no version of the Armory where you can just pick up weapons and beat people up with them, you know? That would be cool. Or at least pick something up and throw it. The MK9 version of the Monastery is pretty cool. I'm quite fond of the lighting here. And did I keep the original? Yes, I did. I do prefer the original's aesthetic a little better. Not for any reason I can adequately explain. And I don't care for this one enough to keep both, so I'll just get rid of that. The plane crash thing, I'm going to go with in the middle of the invasion. I mean, I appreciate having the years later version, where everything's just been left abandoned. It's cool, and also implies some dark stuff about the state of the MK universe, that in 20 years they never went back to try and fix this city up. It's just abandoned. Which I suppose, in a way, makes sense if we assume that this place is really close to the portal to the Sky Temple, and perhaps it was decided that because enemy forces are going to try and get through that portal to the Sky Temple, it's probably best to leave this city abandoned so there won't be civilian casualties next time. If that is the intent behind it, that's really cool and also really grim. The Cove is a fun one, a nice little I feel like the Cove is meant to be MKX's answer to the Pit, because you're on a walkway and you can knock your opponent off into it. I don't think you could have originally. I think they added the stage fatality at post-launch, but it gives me Pit vibes, and it's different. It takes the idea and it does something more distinct with it. You know, honestly, it'd be cool if every realm had its own version of the Pit. So you could have one where you're in the Netherrealm, you can knock them off into lava, and not just complain about the constant lava theme in the Netherrealm, but or make it a fleshy location in the Netherrealm where like flesh monsters grab at them, people have been flayed alive, dragging them into the depths of the gore. Yeah, for a series all about violence and gore, they don't really have many blood themed stages. I suppose we should be thankful for that, because you probably get demonetized for that. I guess I can knock some of these out straight away. The versions of the Hourglass. There's something about the Chronica stuff that the vibe, the aesthetic, never really fit MK for me. They're cool stages, and they did some cool stuff outside of MK11, like with the original version of the location. And the prehistoric one with the dinosaurs is funny, especially when you consider the implications of the dinosaurs in the MK universe. But I think this version, the Dawn of Time version, I think is more interesting visually, because everything else around the hourglass has been made much more basic and generic in a way, with it's just rocks in space. It works better. It fits MK's vibe a lot more than the pure Kronika stuff. Shang Tsung's throne room. Now, did I keep a version of that? Yes, I kept the original, but this one is Rain and Lightning, and I prefer that vibe more, so I'll get rid of the MK1 version and keep the MK9 version. Kind of surprised they didn't put in a version of it in MK11, but I guess they figured we've already got 2 MK1 locations. We can't keep putting more in. Like, the team showed restraint in not doing more nostalgia stuff, which is kind of shocking for MK11. Khan's Arena. Now, where's the... So there's Khan's Arena from MK9 and Kothal's Coliseum from... Well, I think it's called the Coliseum, then you got the Coliseum from... Hang on, it's the Coliseum in MK9 and Kothal's Coliseum in MK11, right? Even though it should have been called, like, Chronal Coliseum because of the time merger. And here's the thing, again, I get what they were going for. Clearly the inspiration for Khan's Arena has always been a gladiatorial arena, like the Romans would have. And, you know, at least when you see it in movies, I don't know what the actual thing would have been like, but you'd see sand all over the floor. And it was one of the few instances of the arena actually being used in the fight choreography in MK11 when Kothal like pocket sand in Khan's face. But I feel like it makes it a bit more generic. I prefer the original vibe with the stone floor and such. And I feel like the more weird background shit they add, just the more generic it ends up feeling. Oh, here's some guy in a chariot riding around the arena for some reason. Or here's random monsters in the background that... I mean, on the one hand, it makes sense to make use of all the area behind Khan, because when you actually stop and think about this, like all the area between Khan and the stands, nothing is happening. Nothing at all. It's one of the reasons why I feel like the Armageddon version is like the most logical version. And if they do make a version of Khan's Arena for the 2021 movie sequel, which I think will be like out next year or something, if they do that, I hope they pull from the Armageddon version more, because it's more unique. You know, we've already had a film with the MK9 version, and I feel like this version with all its death traps would be really interesting for more fatalities. You know, in a way, like, you might have less variety in the fight locations, but at least you have more variety in the ways people die. Like, 2021 has a fight on the pit and no one gets thrown off, although I think there was like a deleted scene, like an alternate version of the scene that suggested that did originally happen. But yeah, I think Khan being here closer to the stands makes more sense. But then when you try film that stuff in the background and say, well, why is that stuff going on there? Isn't that just distracting? It just makes more sense to me, the version from Armageddon. So I guess I'll get rid of the MK2 version as well to make room for other unique stages, and to be consistent with my view that the Armageddon version is just the best version overall. So then if you want Khan up close and personal, you can have Khan's throne room from MK9. That's a pretty good stage. I like it. Try and keep all these together still. Then that's where you got Khan up close and personal, where you can just reach out and grab you and snap your neck or whatever if you want to cheat the narrative. Then I like the Khotan jungle a lot. It's kind of weird how we don't have more... I mean, we have forests, but we don't have jungles, which are similar, but not really the same. I like more foresty, jungly areas. I wish the game would have more. Although the Khotan forest could maybe do with something a bit more unique. I mean, it's Khotan, the Shokan, it's their domain. I would appreciate like a statue, perhaps. Ooh. Ooh, that would be good. Right, I got it right. So, you put in a Goro statue like the one seen at the Warrior Shrine, but because this is set during MKX, after the comic, where Goro lost his arms to Kothal, have the statue's arms be broken off, like it's been vandalized by someone who's like, yeah, fuck you, Goro, Kothal's the man. You don't necessarily have to put like graffiti on it, but you could just have it like the arms have been broken off. Maybe you can see like 3 of them are there. Maybe one of them's got taken severe water damage and has been worn down, and one of them's just gone. One of them is just missing, like the rest is still there, and you can tell that they've been left there, but one of them is notably absent because someone stole it for whatever reason. Add a bit, you know, a bit of mystery, a bit of lore to the stage. Ooh, that's good. I like that a lot. The marketplace is fine. Honestly, I feel like the actual street where this is used for, you know, where the big fights, where all Kothal's fights take place, all the ones you play as him for, I would have had that location where all the fighting's going on be a stage, but we're given the marketplace instead, and like, it's just not as good. It's a bit bland. The courtyard where they're setting up Kothal's statue though, that's pretty cool, so I'll keep that one. This Lin Kuei temple, sure. Although well, this is where another question comes up. So if we assume this is all for one game, that would be drawing from all the games in the series. Probably would be for its story too. Where does this fit in location-wise? Where does this fit as a location as far as the Lin Kuei status quo is? Because in the movies, the animated movies, Legends, they took this and used it as the place for the old Lin Kuei. And I don't know, I feel like the more the original Lin Kuei leans into blue and snow aesthetics, the less unique Sub-Zero's version of the Lin Kuei is, because it already was Sub-Zero centric. I mean, I know when we saw the Lin Kuei in MK1, they all wore blue in Sub-Zero's ending, but, you know, it was the first game, right? We didn't know anything about the Lin Kuei other than him. Maybe they were all ice people, but then as it got fleshed out, and it's like, well, Sector and Cyrax aren't ice people, neither Smoke. You know, that red guy from the MK2 prequel comic, the red guy, who may have been Sector, who knows? But all that stuff, I feel, makes it that anytime we delve into blue Lin Kuei stuff prior to Sub-Zero taking over, it's just weird. So yeah, I like it as a location, but if you're going to keep this as... I mean, it's always possible that Sub-Zero could relocate the Lin Kuei after this. You know, the temple, either because of Armageddon's events where the temple has been compromised, or perhaps he's like, well, you know, maybe Taven should have this place back. You know, it belonged to his mother, so let him have the temple as like a home base in Earthrealm, while the Lin Kuei relocate to the Himalayas. That could work. Yeah, I quite like both Black Dragon stages. It's nice that the Black Dragon finally actually had a stage. I think about how many Black Dragon members there are, how long the Black Dragon has been a part of the series, how many entries have at least one Black Dragon member in them. I mean, MK2 is the only one to not have a Black Dragon member on the roster. The only fighting game in the series. So the only entries to not have a Black Dragon member on the roster or are playing a prominent role in the story are Mythologies and 2. Because Kano was playable in... No, Kano wasn't playable in Shaolin Monks' multiplayer. No, he was an obstacle. Okay, so 2 Shaolin Monks and Mythologies. Other than that, the Black Dragon are very prominent throughout the series, and they didn't get their own stage until MK11. 11! We didn't even get like a DCU one that combines it with like Arkham Asylum or something. It's crazy. Then we have MK9's version of the Tower, or Evil Monastery, or whatever you want to call it. Did I even keep a version of this? I don't think I did. No, I didn't. So, let's just say there's a reason. It's iconic, because it's from MK2, and they brought it back a couple of times, but it's just not that interesting a stage, to be honest. Same with the Special Forces exterior base. Interior, I think, is actually quite good. The tank bunker. I wish there was a bit more cool interaction stuff, like maybe with one of the tanks, but, you know, it is what it is. I'll keep this, the Kaitin thing, just because it's the only stage they've got. They don't need the Beast Pen. Tarkatan Camp, again. The Tarkatans didn't have their own stage until this game. That's the thing. It'll be interesting, I think, to go through each game and say, okay, what stage in this game do you most associate with each character on the roster? So, what stage would you consider Baraka's stage in MK2? Probably Khan's Arena, right? Because they're fighting for... Or the Wasteland, because that's where the Tarkatan operate. Then Deception, it's like, well, just some outward location, nowhere unique. And then you finally get here, it's like, yes, the Tarkatans have their own stage. So that's what I associate the Tarkatans with. That's what Baraka's stage would be. That would be an interesting exercise, I think. Just to highlight how weird it is that certain major groups within the franchise didn't have stages associated with them until really late in the game. Cyber Factory, very cool. Even if the stuff we see it doing in the story mode is dumb, like, why is it cutting that man in half? I don't think you can cyberize the man. If all you need is a brain, why are you cutting his brain in half? What are you doing? You don't need, like, surplus flesh for any of this stuff. You just put him in an incinerator and leave him be. Fucking hell, Christ. Fire Garden is a very nice stage, very wallpaper-esque. I wish there's a bit more unique Shiryu iconography, or that they'd like Shiryu members just in the background hanging out. Put Taken in the background. Just take his MKX model, put him in the background, it works. Do it, cowards. The Dragon Grotto is fine, but it's not the kind of thing we'll look at and go, that needs to come back. Same with the Shaolin Trap Dungeon. Plus, the whole thing with the Shaolin Traps always struck me as kind of weird. They have these death traps. You know, it's just a bit off. Then I'll take the Spire. I like Shinnok's Spire, and it's good for him to have his own Netherrealm base again. And then we have the Refugee Camp, which pretty cool. Okay, so now to go through some of these stages real quick. We don't really need the portal. Again, it's one of those that's iconic, but it's not anything special. Get rid of Themyscira. I don't remember what my thought process was for keeping DCU stages that are DC specific. I think it was for the idea of a crossover or something. Okay, let's count how many we've got. 14 full rows in Keep. almost 15 full in erase, which means I have plenty of room to keep some of these. Foundry's pretty cool. You could put in some weapons there and make it basically this is what the Armory is now. Don't really need the bridge. We've got enough street stages as is. Plus that one doesn't offer anything particularly noteworthy. Edenian Ruins, sure. Shana Ruins, okay. Keep the Jinsei, keep the Special Forces base from DCU. I'm hesitant with the bank because it's a little different, but it is literally just like one floor down from the roof. So it doesn't really offer anything particularly unique. Although it could have been cool if they had some slightly more cinematic stage transitions like X-Men Next Dimension. Instead of just being knock the opponent off and they fall, it could be you knock the opponent off, but then they grab onto something and swing through the window into this floor from the roof, and the other character jumps in. But if someone gets knocked out that window, that's it, they're done. No, bring back stage transitions, but make them like more cinematic, right? Have like cool fight choreography going on there, where characters can save themselves. But we are 2 behind the erase, so if I get rid of this, still space to keep another couple. So just looking at what we've got now, what would I keep? I'd bring back the swamp, honestly, because we don't really have any swamp locations, plus it's one of those that is, I think it's tied to the Zaterrans, so that would be a cool thing for Reptile to have his own stage. I mean, I think they actually took concept art for the swamp when it was going to be used in Deadly Alliance, but wasn't, and used it for Reptile's render of his de-evolution. That was cool. Yin Yang Island I would bring back, and like I think I discussed this last time where I think I said that I would make it that the island is like it is in the render, where there's different parts of the island that have different weather conditions rather than it just changes on a whim. By the way, it's one of the more unique stage concepts. I wish they would do more with it. And this is something I'm hoping for, is that more old stages will come back, even if they're reimagined as 2D environments. I want more classic stages from the 3D era to come back, rather than just the same handful from MK1 and 2 over and over and over again. I can't really find any here that I would specifically want to bring back. I think if I did, I would just be doing it for the sake of some variety by getting rid of some of these ones. So for my final pass, I'm going to go over the ones I put in keep and consider whether I would get rid of any of these to make room for something a bit more unique. Get rid of any of the stages I've got twice. I want to keep both versions of the graveyard because I think their aesthetics are different enough. Because it is the point where we're thinking, oh, I should get rid of some of these ones that I've put in keep that I've got twices of. But then when I actually looked over these ones, a lot of these are just generic conquest stages or like highly specific themes for like conquest mode. Or on, actually this one's pretty good. Or it's just another twicer stage, which we've got plenty of. So I'm going to keep the Red Dragon one because it gives the Red Dragon a cool base, which means I need to get rid of one of these. No. I guess I can get rid of the MK11 version of the Deadpool to make a bit of room. I think that's it. Yeah, I can't think of any others I would specifically get rid of. So now I'm going to go over the arenas and see if I can remember all the names. Actually, I should rearrange these first. Okay, so picture this. A Mortal Kombat game that is perhaps going to retell the whole series story, or is just a new entry with lots and lots of stages. Maybe a new, like a non-canon Everyone Is Here game, or one that's like, this is just the events that occurred in another timeline, or some bullshit like Onslaught's doing. Like, just imagine this game has all these stages, and here's what we have. From MK1. I kept the original version of the Courtyard. Oh, damn it. Hold on. I did not do this well. Okay, I'll keep MK9 Goro's lair, okay? Say it's another part of the lair, whatever. So, from MK1, we have the Pit Bottom and the Warrior Shrine. That's it, I guess. For MK2, we have the Pit 2, and that's it. Wow, I was not kind to MK1 and 2. From MK3, conversely, which either speaks to how much more interesting the stages in MK3 were, or how little they get redone comparatively. For MK3, we have the Rooftop, the Street, the Cemetery, or the Graveyard, or whichever. You know, they change the names of these arenas sometimes, I don't care. The Subway, the Soul Chamber, the Cathedral, whatever this place was called, like Khan's like secret sex dungeon, I guess. Hell, the Waterfront, and Jade's Desert. From MK4, we have Elder Gods, the Ice Pit, Reptile's Lair, the Shaolin Temple place, Wind World, I think it's called, the Well, Shinnok's Throne Room, whatever that was called. This purple location that was probably meant to be somewhere in Outworld, which I consider the Reiko stage, but yeah. From Deadly Alliance, we have the Acid Bath, the Dragonfly, the Portal. I forget what it's called. It's the place where Kenshi's ancestors are. I don't recall the name of it. It also seems to come up less on random rotation, weirdly enough. The Lin Kuei Temple, or Lin Kuei Palace, whichever. The Wuxi Academy, the Dragon King's Tomb, the Dragon Egg Chamber, the exterior and interior of Shang Tsung's palace, the Swamp, and the Shana Ruins. From Deception, we have the Beetle Lair, Quan Chi's Fortress, the Kuatan Palace, the Lower Mines, the Dark Prison, the Pit, the Courtyard, the Living Forest, the Deadpool, the Sky Temple, Liu Kang's Tomb, I think it's called, the Portal, Yin Yang Island, and the Foundry. From Armageddon, we have the Bell Tower, that little guard tower area on the way to the Lin Kuei Palace, Reptile's Lair, the Tekkunin base thing, I think that the Tekkunin Command Center or something, Khan's Arena, Goro's Lair, I think this is the Armory, I think so, the Subway, Khan's Throne Room, this cool location, I think it's called like Meteor Shower or something, the War Room, Hell, the Edenian Ruins, the Red Dragon base, like the chamber with the actual Red Dragon in it, and the Wasteland. From MK vs DCU, we have the Ruins of Metropolis, which could be generalised into being just general city ruins, the Special Forces base, the amalgamation of Khan and Darkseid's throne rooms, which I think is called Khan's Throne Room or something, the Sky Temple / Rock of Eternity, the Fortress of Solitude. From MK9, we have the Nighttime Courtyard, the Daytime Pit, the Cemetery, the Living Forest, Shang Tsung's Throne Room, Khan's Throne Room, Goro's Lair, the Garden, I think it's called. Or did they call it the Warrior Shrine? I think it's called the Garden. It's more Garden than Warrior Shrine. The Training Dojo, Jade's Desert, or I guess Sindel's Desert, the Wasteland, the Street, and the Rooftop. Mid-conflict. From MKX, we have the Kuatan Jungle, Quan Chi's Fortress, Kothal's Courtyard, whatever it's called, the Cove, the Lin Kuei Temple, the Refugee Camp, the Jinsei Chamber, the Deadwood, the Sky Temple. Yeah, that's it. From MK11, we have the Soul Chamber, the Courtyard, Tournament, Retrocade, the 2 Sea of Blood stages. I forget which is which one's just called the Sea of Blood and which one has its own unique name. Oh, we also have the Ruined City from MKX, I forgot to move that. We have the Dawn of Time version of Chronica's Hourglass, the Black Dragon Fight Club, the exterior of the Black Dragon Fight Club, the Special Forces Tank Bunker, the Kaitin Hive, Tarkatin War Camp, the Lin Kuei Cyber Factory, Shinnok's Bone Temple, and the Shiraidu Fire Gardens. I think that's a pretty decent selection of stages. You know, I could go a bit further and like remove any other instances of having the same location twice. I've got a few of those, like Goro's Lair and such. But I feel like the ones I've kept are different enough in layout and or aesthetic. And then compared to a lot of the others, it's like a lot of them are somewhat generic or not particularly interesting, or are just the same arena again. Like, we don't need more versions of the monastery. Stop it. I would consider keeping this one because I think that's where Taven fights Goro, while Goro's like, I think the location is inside the statue of Shao Kahn's mouth in that fortress. Which the fact that there's a fortress in the shape of Shao Kahn's there's a statue is amazing. But I think this is like in the mouth and Goro's looking out over the army or something. And if you could knock the opponent off the ledge down towards those guys and do like a Team America where like Kim Jong-il falls onto the German diplomat, I think's helmet and it like gets impaled. If you could do that, that would be dope. Like someone falls down and like lands on like some dude's spear, and he's like, what? And then you could maybe have even different reactions based on who falls. Like if it's Shao Kahn or like a major general is like, oh shit, oh no, or if it's like an Earthrealmer, he's like, I did it, I killed an Earthrealmer. Look, everyone. You know what? I've convinced myself. I'm going to put that in, and to make up for it, I'm going to remove... Ooh, which one do we get rid of? It's tough. It really is tough. I guess I'd get rid of... Where is it now? Deception's version of the Living Forest. No! But I have to. Because it is better being close to the trees. The clearing is just there because it's a cool alternative. But yeah, now, I'm pretty sure this is not the selection I had originally. I'll probably staple onto the end some footage of that, even if I don't have any voiceover for it, just to show what the end list was originally. And then you can decide for yourselves whether the final version is better or worse than the original. But for now, I'm done. I've been going for an hour. My throat is dying. I need to rest. Make more MK videos so that I don't, like... make zero money from zero views and die of malnutrition. See ya.